All right, it's officially the countdown to Christmas because we are in December. That means we're also counting down to my birthday, which is December 31st. Welcome to the Matt Sager podcast. I apologize for having run a repeat last night, Monday, December 3rd, but I had done some oral surgery, or rather, I'd gone through some oral surgery. Suffice it to say, there had already been a bone graft. Now they were drilling into the bone, screwing stuff in, and podcasting, much as I love it, I didn't feel that podcasting was going to be good for you or for me. Like, you might just hear me go, oh, and for those of us who missed the sound of David Brenner, you know, I get it. There is a void where once there was a guy who sounded pained to be speaking, but I do not feel as though I was the guy to have stepped up and filled that void. Also, I was just in too much pain, and I was on painkillers. I was trying to have a conversation with people, and I was like, yes, I did. So podcasting was just not on the agenda, but that's how quickly I bounced back. We're doing it tonight, and we got trailers galore to talk about, basically talking about all things Marvel. Not just trailers, but also the sad fate of the Marvel Netflix universe and Daredevil. But the big news, the news we're leading with, is the debut of the Captain Marvel trailer. It dropped last night. People seem to feel very, very strongly one way or the other about it. Many people are just furious because there were rumors that along with this trailer, the trailer for Avengers 4 was going to be released. And so lots of people just lost their shit. And we're like, oh, this is unacceptable. What does Marvel think they're doing? Who do they think they are? And a bunch of people went on a spree going through like all of Marvel's YouTube channel and their various other video platforms and downvoting them just as punishment for having teased them, as if Marvel had started these rumors, which they may have. But look, if you're upset at a company like Marvel, don't go around downvoting all their videos because there's something they do or do not do regarding a specific video, like a trailer for Avengers 4. That doesn't help them. That is not constructive criticism. That just makes you look like an imbecile, and it helps fuel this narrative. And honestly, it's a fair one when you're doing this about online harassment campaigns. If you're not happy, just say you're not happy and move on with your life. Don't get obsessed. But let's talk about Captain Marvel, the new trailer. Brie Larson continues to look very impressive as Captain Marvel. Jude Law making an appearance as a Kree agent of some sort. Really, it's all about Sam Jackson and the kitty cat. That, to me, is the payoff for all this. But then again, I'm a big fan of Samuel Jackson and an enormous fan of kitty cats. So, clearly, I'm a bit biased. But to the matter at hand, Brie Larson, of course, looks great as the title character, Captain Marvel. The story holes that appeared in the first trailer remain here. I continue to be of the belief that given all of Nick Fury's talk about having never experienced alien invasions before, never having met costumed heroes before, how Thor was the big shocking revelation, and before that Iron Man was a big deal, and you know, we don't really talk about the Hulk because at the time, prior to the Avengers, the most recent Hulk movie was the 2008 Edward Norton Incredible Hulk, and Marvel, I don't think, was quite sure that they were going to end up using the Hulk at all after that. But suffice it to say that there is no way, going back through all of Marvel's films, that there was ever a period in the 90s in which there was a superhero and the Kree-Skrull War was fought on Earth, and to insert this now, I believe it is a bit of it's playing fast and loose with, and comics do this all the time. Comics and MacGuffins go together like peanut butter and chocolate, and I'm sure eventually that was going to have to be the case of comic book movies. And again, what has happened here, I believe, is that now there will have been an age of 90s superheroes, and it will come about because, spoiler alert, big time, for Avengers Infinity War. Because of events toward the end of Infinity War involving Doctor Strange and the Time Stone, there is now a new Marvel past. This is what they call in the comics a retcon. So having accepted that, let us look at the movie itself and take it on its merits. Forget about any storytelling problems that it may or may not be victim to as a concept. Let's look at the execution. So this time we start off with that controversial subway scene in which Captain Marvel decks an old lady.
So, Skrulls are the bad guys.
That's right.
And you're a Kree, a race of noble warriors.
Heroes. Noble warrior heroes.
Not to be all arrogant or anything. Noble warrior heroes.
Your life began the day it nearly ended. We found you with no memory We made you
So some very nice set
one of
pieces.
us.
Very nice
So you can
CGI,
live
if a little bit
longer,
overdone.
Stronger, superior. You were reborn.
All right, she looks badass.
I keep having these
But the trailer lacks cohesion.
memories.
We're cutting back and forth
Something
from
in my
space
past is the key to all of this.
to Earth.
You know how to fly this thing?
We'll see.
That's a yes or no question.
Yes.
Sam Jackson does look more than 20 years younger. It's quite impressive.
Would you like to know what you really are?
That's Jude Law as some unknown Kree.
I think I had a life here.
We finally get a look at some
What are you
Skrulls.
telling me?
You've come a long way, but you're not as strong as you think. This war is just the beginning.
I'm not gonna fight your war. I'm gonna end it.
Okay.
Aren't you the cutest little thing? Aren't you cute? And what's your name, huh?
Fury.
What's you? I'll be back.
Okay, so the real payoff here is watching Nick Fury and the kitty cat. That is undisputed, okay? That is cute. It is adorable. But also, let's talk about Captain Marvel. Brie Larson as Carol Danvers looks badass, much more so in this trailer than in the previous one. A lot of my doubts and reservations that accompanied the previous trailer obliterated here. This looks quite good. Again, there is this storytelling problem, which they're going to have to address. But I mean, it's comic books, all right? If we don't have a problem with a talking tree, a talking raccoon, with Howard the Duck, it stretches the boundaries of reality that we could have a problem going, oh, well, there weren't supposed to be heroes in the 90s, so this breaks the whole universe for me. Look, at that point, I would argue that misogyny is playing a little bit of a role. If you're that negative on something that looks so great, in a universe that is all about the fantastic and the fantastical and the ridiculous. Now, regarding that role that Jude Law plays, I called him an unspecified Kree or a rando Kree, something like that. I know that there has been rampant speculation that he's going to be playing Mar-Vell, the original Captain Marvel, as he was portrayed in the comics. Now, I have an answer as to whether or not that's true. I don't know whether or not you want me to spoil it. I'll withhold any comment pending a reaction from you. Send me an email to matt@mattsager.com. Hit me up on Twitter at @mattsager. Call 646-535-4788 because I am privy to what the name of Jude Law's character actually is. And if that matters to you, if you do want it spoiled, if you don't, I would like your approval before I just dump it on the internet like that. Seems irresponsible to just go, oh, by the way, the secret Jude Law role is really such and such without your approval. So let me know. I wouldn't want to spoil it for you. All right, on to other comics trailer-related news. People were led to believe that the Avengers 4 trailer was going to drop tomorrow on Good Morning America. And I don't know if I buy this as a reason, but Marvel is claiming that it was scheduled to air tomorrow, Wednesday, December 5th on Good Morning America, but it is going to be pulled, delayed, and released later on an unspecified date out of deference to the death of President George H.W. Bush, Bush 41. Now, I don't mean to in any way impugn on Bush 41. This is not a commentary on that. But he was laid to rest yesterday. Tomorrow is an official day of mourning, but I don't know that that makes any sense that Good Morning America, owned by ABC, which is owned by Disney, which also owns Marvel, why they would all come together and say, no, we can't air this trailer for Avengers 4 out of deference to George W. Bush, who's been dead for several days, as has our own Stan Lee. I believe there is something more to this, that maybe it was screened to a small audience or possible an audience of Marvel shareholders or top executives, and someone said, no, this is not ready. Cut this. That tells something that's much too important to the plot. Or no, this is too sloppy a cut. Or no, we need an edit that focuses more on Captain America or the Hulk or Thanos or something like that. There is a reason why it was leaked that it was going to debut and then suddenly pulled like this. And again, with all respect to George H.W. Bush, I do not believe he is the inciting incident as to why it won't air. There's a greater story here, and it may very well be as simple as Marvel just loving to get our expectations up, get us us hyped up, get us talking about Avengers 4, making it a trending topic, and then pulling it away, which is a known catalyst to increase already enhanced enthusiasm. Saying, oh, it's coming, it's coming. Oh, sorry, we can't run it tomorrow, but someday soon, we'll let you know. That is a classic formula to get somebody really, really hyped up about something that they're itching to get news on. When there hasn't been a lot of news about it for a while, teasing that news and then withdrawing it. Great hook, great gimmick. And without seeming overly cynical, a gimmick is what I believe this to be. And there's another rumor about a trailer for an upcoming Marvel movie. This time with one that appears to be a solid lead. That Spider-Man-Farfromhome has a trailer that's going to drop this week, and in particular, people are specifically saying it's going to drop Saturday. That will be our first official trailer of Spider-Man Far From Home, and while all this stuff is clearly subject to the whims of fate, the whims of the corporations involved, stuff like that, I'm inclined to believe that's probably going to happen, either on Saturday or beforehand, but I bet you we do see something, at least a little teaser for Spider-Man Far From Home this week. Why Avengers 4 isn't just announced for, again, if Wednesday is because of George H.W. Bush, why Avengers 4 has not simply been announced for, hey, we're going to air it Thursday, speaks to me of some chicanery going on. But I bet we'll see something from them as well very, very soon. Lastly, I've been asked by a bunch of you, I've remarked on Daredevil Season 3. There was a point when I was going to recap episodes on a daily or every couple of days, a basis like that. But then all Daredevil fans, the same people who'd asked me to recap it on this show, said, hey, look, by the time you were done recapping episode 1, we're hardcore fans. We'd already binged the entire season twice, so don't worry about it. And I was relieved for that, but I later remarked on this season that it was good, but flawed. Really, really flawed, despite being great. And I received several emails over the last 48 hours saying, what was so awful about it? And I can tell you, it is a simple narrative device that recurs throughout the season. It's its only problem, but it's a severe problem. One that, when you've got a show that's firing on all cylinders like Daredevil has been since season 1, and certainly was firing on many of them this season. It's great to be enthusiastic and to be a cheerleader and to just root for the writer's room. Encourage your writers when they try interesting new narrative devices. And there was lots of that in Daredevil Season 3. And in many cases, it played out perfectly. I'm thinking in particular of the episode in which Wilson Fisk looks over Dex's files, Dex being Bullseye. And rather than a rote recitation of all the psychological problems he's had, on this date, patient exhibited this type of behavior, you see Wilson Fisk sort of fading into the background. And although this had a lot of potential for corniness, they played it off wonderfully. Where Fisk is transported back in time and watches a young Dex as he commits his first murder, as he meets with his therapist, as he grows up, gets his life in order, sort of, and really immerses himself in Dex. And that plays very well, especially with what he does next, where he begins to really manipulate him and draw him in as an employee / recruit / lackey / partner, that he really gets a deep personal feel for him. From childhood on, a kindness he repays in these communications he has with Dex, where he goes, come, I'd like to tell you a story. When I was 12, I hit my father with a hammer until he died. And as hokey as each of those might seem on their own in less skilled hands, it made for a really compelling narrative as to how these people could do what they do, how they could reconcile it, how they could be comfortable with it, and how their bond could be formed. So, what did I have a problem with in terms of experimental narration? There is a recurring theme in which Matt Murdock is struggling, and he doesn't have friends to bounce stuff off. He's operating on his own, and in the world of comics, this might be a place where you dive into way too much exposition territory, where you've got these thought balloons that are so thick you can barely see Matt Murdock on the panel, or just endless amounts of text. Stuff to the effect of, wow, I can't believe I'm here. Now that I'm here, what am I going to do? Stuff that is better to be shown than to be told. That is a classic lesson in all forms of storytelling, one that comics struggle with and one that comics adapted television is going to have a tricky time with. So as for Daredevil, all the internal exposition he had to do, he didn't have thought balloons, he didn't have captions, but he was walking around literally talking to himself. What they did was they'd have these auditory hallucinations accompanied by visuals, which when you're talking about Murdock, a blind man, gets very confusing, and suddenly you have to think about this narrative device so much that it is very jarring and jerks you right out of the storyline and becomes very silly. I'm talking about the many scenes in which Matt is skulking around, trying to decide how to handle Fisk, trying to track Fisk down, and in which Fisk appears to him like the ghost of Christmas future. So, now you've penetrated my building. What are you going to do now? And so many of these lines are so clearly bad ADR takes. You can watch his lips move and the dialogue doesn't sync up. And you go, is this ADR? How can I tell? And then he gives a great tell. He'll say a line that is meant for any occasion, that would fit in anywhere, and yet does not actually make sense anywhere. I'm talking about the most generic catch-all dialogue that is clearly being dubbed in, particularly egregious, obvious examples like this one from, I believe it was episode 3.
Whatever this is.
Right. When D'Onofrio, the amazing Vincent D'Onofrio, is saying, "So, you're doing what? Whatever this is." It means that you've run into a wall in terms of your narration. And it is a cool idea. And it could have been so good. But especially juxtaposing it against those bullseye scenes, also starring Vincent D'Onofrio, it shows a really, really wasted potential and a mistake so bad that I get that these Netflix series not only have a cap as to how many or how few episodes there can be, but they're on a schedule. They need to say we're going to have a season produced by this date, and they need to hold to that or they'll be held accountable and there will be grave repercussions. But I would have rather a delay than such a critical flaw, harming in a very real way such an otherwise sublime series of television, one that, as it happens, is in fact the last season of Daredevil we're going to see on Netflix. Now, I will bet you good money we'll be seeing him either in future Marvel movies, almost certainly on the upcoming Disney Plus, as I've learned is the name of the Disney streaming service, debuting in 2019. I believe many of these characters, many of these actors, crew members, showrunners will be back. But I don't know. It's certainly my hope. It would be a terrible waste to not bring these great characters, cast, crew back. But I don't have any inside knowledge. I want to make that very, very clear. Nothing that you're hearing on the Matt Sager podcast is in any way inside Marvel or inside Netflix. I'm just reading tea leaves. And I certainly hope for the best for the cast and crew of Daredevil. Of course, Luke Cage and Iron Fist, Jessica Jones and The Punisher. The last two are apparently going to have seasons on Netflix, but we don't even really know that for sure. There's a Punisher series in the can. No date announced. And Jessica Jones season 3, it would almost be weird if they didn't pull it at this point. Now that it's a certainty that the Marvel Netflix universe is coming to a close, it's going to be awkward whether those shows return or not. But I wish them all the best, as I do for you. Welcome to the week. Thank you for spending it with me. Get in touch with the Matt Sager podcast, however you like. You can send an email to matt@mattsager.com or call 646-535-4788. You can also get me on social media. On Twitter, I'm @MattSager. Please check out my Instagram, Real Matt Sager, and my Facebook page, The Matt Sager, and my voiceover page there, Matt Sager VO. And be sure to like this podcast page, Matt Sager Podcast. Also, check out the links in tonight's description. There'll be a link to my new merch store from my friends at We Have Merch, and a link to my Patreon. All kinds of cool rewards and merch are available, and I'd love to hear from you. Any suggestions for more of either, or both. And for the rest, more social media links, my voiceover reels and contact information, articles, blog posts, back episodes of this podcast, and much more. You can head on over to mattsagervoiceover.com.